get going then. So, morning, everybody. Welcome to this Friday's webinar with Annika Digital. It's myself, Anne Stanley, and Holly. We're going to be talking about shopping feeds and how to improve them. But we always start off with a bit of a poll at the beginning, just to find out what the audience know. So I will run that, and then we will pass over, and Holly will share her slides. The handouts are available. Please ask questions in the chat, and the video will be available. The other thing is that as Holly's sharing her slides, there's usually a little arrow top right, so you can make the slides a little bit bigger. So let's start the first poll then. I will maximize it so you can see the results on the page. Are you currently running Google shopping ads? Yes and no. Very, very simple. So the shopping ads are the ones right at the top when you go in and search for sort of new trainers or something. And they drive most e-commerce, a very large percentage of e-commerce traffic to e-commerce websites. And they're very important for any e-commerce business. And if you're a marketeer or starting out in marketing, it's a very important aspect for you to understand. So it looks like we've got about 40-60%. So 40% are currently running ads and shopping ads, and about 60% aren't. And we do have quite a lot of students from our courses on these webinars, so that always sort of skews the results slightly. So let's go and try another one. Come up the queue. So, do you make improvements to your product feed? So, if you aren't using shopping ads, don't complete this, because otherwise it messes the results up. So, if you are doing shopping ads and you are running them, do you make any improvements to your product feed? And for anybody that's completely new, I know Holly will probably explain it. It's the product feed that basically acts as the bridge between your website, getting your product data, and getting that over into Google Ads. So I'm sure Holly's going to go into that in a lot more detail. So you've got a 40-60 split again. Hopefully it's not the same 40-60 as before, and we're just looking at the people that have got shopping ads. But that sort of gives you an idea of what people are doing with their shopping. Okay, and the final question. I'm just going to close the old one. Do you feel you are maximizing the potential in your Google shopping? So obviously this is only really relevant to anybody that's doing Google shopping. So please don't answer if you're not doing Google shopping. So, that's very telling, isn't it? So the people that are doing Google shopping then, nearly 85% of you think that you aren't maximizing the potential, particularly with Performance Max, which I know Holly is going to be talking about, and quite a lot of the other members of the team. Oh, they've got about three-quarter split now. So over to you, Holly. I'll close that poll. If you want to share your slides, I'll let you know that I can see them. Okay.
Yep. Share my screen. Okay, that should be coming up now for you.
Yeah, that's coming up. I'll turn my mic off. And just remember, everybody, you can maximize your screen with the little arrows in the top. See you in about 45 minutes.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anne. So, in terms of today's webinar, I'll be talking all about how you can increase your shopping ads visibility through feed optimization. In terms of a little bit about me, so I specialize in PPC. I've been with Annika 10+ years now, and I lead the paid media team at Annika. I'm also a guest author for Search Engine Land and PPC Hero, and I am doing a talk, this very similar talk actually, at HeroConf at Brighton. So if any of you are there, be good to see a few faces. That's on the 10th and 11th of April. So I'll be down in Brighton with a very, very similar theme for my talk. In terms of the talk today, I'm going to be talking about what exactly you should be optimizing within your product feed, how you should be optimizing your product feed, or how you can optimize your product feed, and then what the impacts are of kind of putting these optimizations into place. As I mentioned, in terms of the product feed itself, this is the bridge between your website and Google Shopping ads. So this is where Google Shopping ads will pull all of the information about kind of your products, your offers, whether that's the imagery, whether that's the title of your product, whether that's the price point, all of the information about your product that runs through your Google product feed. That feeds into the tool called Merchant Center, and that's just kind of an intermediary platform which kind of processes all of your product data, pushes it into Google Ads, and then Google Ads uses this product data to identify whether or not to show your ad to what a user is entering into Google, and also what is shown to the user. So everything within your product feed is used to develop the ad that is shown to the end user. So optimizing that information is really important for two fronts, really, to get that extra visibility, because if your product feed is missing information and you've not given kind of all of the information that you possibly could about your products, then Google isn't going to be able to identify as well which product searches to match your product to. And then in addition to that, if your product does show, you want to make sure that it's showing with relevant information. You want to make sure that it's showing with the most favorable image of your product that you can possibly show it with, because this is ultimately going to be the deciding factor of whether a user clicks on your product ad or not. The talk today, we're going to be talking, predominantly about how we can optimize kind of the feed itself and the information that's within the feed. In addition to that, there are some additional elements that you can kind of work on in the background, more from kind of an SEO standpoint, that can just help to kind of boost your chances of getting your product ad delivered. And I'll touch on a couple of those as well. And just a point on the feed optimization as well, whilst coming from a paid background, I am talking about it in the sense of Google for use with kind of Google Shopping ads. But one of the things with Merchant Center in the last couple of years, if you aren't aware, they release what is known as free listings. So this is kind of on the SEO organic front, where you can still submit your product feed to Google Merchant Center. And rather than just having to push it out via the ads platform, you can now benefit from free listings as well. So even if you don't have the ad budget to go away and run kind of shopping ads, it's worthwhile, if you are an e-commerce store, to get your shopping feed loaded into Merchant Center, because that's going to enable you to benefit from the free listings. So let's get started in terms of what we can look to optimize in our feed. So in terms of the product feed, you want to provide as much product detail as you possibly can. And we can break this down into a few different elements about kind of the products. So you've got your product attributes. And when I talk about attributes, these are kind of the identifying factors of the product. So that's things like your product ID, it's your product title, your descriptions, and then all of the kind of identifiable and I guess variant attributes like your color, your size, your material, things like that. And these product attributes are really key in determining whether Google chooses to show your product when a user searches or not. They are essentially your keywords in the nature of Google Shopping. So where for kind of search ads, you go away and you enter specific keywords that you want to match your ads to. In shopping ads, Google uses the information within your feed to match to a user's search. So if you think about things like your product title, having a really kind of vague product title can really kind of be a detriment to Google being able to identify, well, do I show this ad? Is it relevant for this product search that a user has put in or not? And sometimes what I have found in kind of my experience is for like some businesses and some brands, they will name their product in a way that is very unique, but it only means something to that product or that business. So, for example, I used to have a garden stoneware company that made kind of really like beautiful, nice like garden planters, all cast stone. And their product titles, they they were always something really fancy, something like the rose. They would just be called something like the rosebud, and that would be the title of the product. And within that, if Google was to see kind of that, it wouldn't be able to identify, well, what is this product? Is it a plant itself? Is it a planter? Is it, I don't know, it could be a garden shed. It could be absolutely anything, because there's no identifying attributes within that title itself. So it's really important to get the information into your product attributes and give Google that detail in order to be able to accurately match your products to relevant searches. And I've got some examples as we go through kind of the slides of where that potentially, goes a little bit wrong, and how your ads can appear for kind of irrelevant searches where you get your kind of data mixed up. The next element is the product visuals. So this is all connected to the product imagery of that you submit within your feed. So as standard, you have to submit one product image in order to be able to push your product into Google, whether that's for ads, whether that's for free listings. You have to have at least one product image. But you can also submit additional imagery, and Google's also kind of rolling out features for some of the verticals where you can submit 360 imagery as well. So it's always kind of expanding what you can kind of submit. With the product visuals, you want to ensure that you're submitting relevant and reflective, high quality imagery. So in some scenarios, when you think about kind of the product visuals, sometimes you'll submit it as a kind of image with a product photo on a white background, and it'll be kind of very simple, very straightforward, and that's something that can be tested. In other scenarios, you might have more of kind of a lifestyle based imagery. And when it comes to kind of the lifestyle based imagery, it's really important that, for example, if you're selling a lamp, that the lamp is first and foremost obviously what is being sold within that product image, because quite often you might find that you've got other various kind of elements that are within the product image that they're not actually what you're selling. Other areas of that would be if you're selling a singular, like dining chair, for example, it needs to be clear in the product image that it is a singular chair, and not, if you've got an image of a set of 4, then that can be kind of misleading. So the product visual needs to be reflective of the product that you're selling. There's also some rules and kind of policies around, you can't have image overlay, logo overlays, anything like that. So the image must just be of the product itself. If the product has a logo on it, naturally that's absolutely fine, but you can't kind of overlay images or anything like that into the product. The third element is the product pages. So for every product that is submitted, it needs to have a product page on the website. And the product page can be really important in terms of the information that is contained on that product page. So one of the things that Google will do is you'll submit your feed to Google Merchant Center, and it will process that information, and it will process the price, for example, as it comes in within that feed. During the time in which between you submitting the feed one day and then it refetching the feed the next day, what might happen is your product price might change on your site. Google, in the meantime, will essentially do live crawls of your site and your product schema data on the page to identify if anything's kind of changing in that kind of space. So that might be the stock quantity, that might be the price, things like that. And Google will pull an update. But it's really important that over time that Google isn't having to update these elements too frequently, or it can result in disapprovals. So whilst it's not directly connected to kind of feed optimization, the accuracy of the data within your feed and how that matches back to what's on the product page is really, really important. And if you've got issues with that product schema matching what's in your product feed, then that is something to kind of optimize and improve and make sure that you're sending the right data for all of the products all of the time. In addition to that kind of schema markup data, other things that Google is looking at in terms of determining whether to show your product versus a competitor's product will be things like your site speed, things like how your site performs from an SEO basis, so your domain authority and things like that, how many people are kind of linking back to your site. So whilst they're not the first factor in terms of determining whether to trigger your ad or not, if you have two websites that are vying for that same kind of ad space, there comes down to essentially the factors of whether to rank and show one ad versus another ad, and things like your page speed, things like the authority of your website, they can all kind of come into effect to determining which of the products Google decides to show. And that also then translates into the trust factors. So things like your product reviews, really, really kind of important. Again, it's not something you can directly optimize within the feed itself, but it's something that in order to kind of boost that kind of visibility and boost your kind of performance within shopping ads, focusing on getting those kind of product reviews is going to be beneficial to getting that higher ads visibility. Other factors in this are things like your returns policy, your delivery policies, and how they align against kind of what is accepted within kind of your vertical, and what are your competitors, and how does it compare to what your competitors are doing. And it's not the same for each and every vertical. You know, if you're buying a sofa, most people are very, very acceptant of the fact that you're not going to order a sofa and it's going to come the next day. Everybody has a bit of a lead time in terms of getting kind of a sofa delivered. Whereas if you're ordering a dress online, well, actually the expectation these days becomes, well, I would expect that to come, you know, the next day or within 2 days. So there's very different expectations within different verticals, and determining whether your returns and delivery policies are good or in line with the industry will be dependent on kind of what vertical that you are in. So they're the elements that we can optimize. In terms of the rest of the talk, it's going to be focusing on specifically what we can optimize directly within the feed. But obviously, it's good to be aware of those additional elements that you can kind of tweak and change to improve your chances of getting your ad delivered. But they do sit more on kind of the website of things. In terms of optimizing product titles, essentially a lot of it is logic, and it will be different for each product type, each different vertical. And I've got some examples coming up, but for different kind of product types, different information is important. So if you're thinking about kind of electronics and you're thinking about whether that's a phone, whether that's a washing machine, something like that, then actually things like the model number is really important to a user. So if somebody was searching for an iPhone and they were searching for, you know, the latest iPhone 16, maybe 17, then that model number is important to the user, and whether they're searching for the Pro or whether they're searching for the Max or whatever it might be. And same when it comes to kind of a washing machine. If you're looking to, you know, replace a washing machine like for like, or you need a specific part, something like that, then you're going to be searching with the model number. But in another industry, you know, home furnishings, the model number, MPN numbers, anything like that, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter to the end user. So it's about understanding and defining what is important within this product vertical, within this product category, that a user is going to want to see, that is going to make a difference in terms of whether they click on my ad, but also whether my product matches to what a user is searching for. So it does vary depending on kind of the vertical that you're in. The other element of it is, how do you optimize for higher reach versus lower reach? So in some cases, you're going to want your products to show for more searches. So if your product is a top seller, you might want that product to show for more category related searches, because in addition to the product itself, if somebody's searching directly for the product, because it's a bestseller, this product is actually likely going to perform better than other products for kind of category related searches. So if somebody is generally just searching for like running shoes in this example, then which of your products do you want to show for that search? And optimizing your titles for this kind of high and low reach can help you to kind of achieve that. And again, I've got some examples coming up. So when we are optimizing titles, there's a few different things that we can look at. So the first one is looking at keyword insertion. Now, when we think about keyword insertion, this is a lot easier to do once your product ads have been live and you've got some data. But essentially, you want to identify what are users searching for to find your products. So, excuse me, this is using Claude. So it's using AI, and you can do this manually within Excel. Claude, ChatGPT is just going to speed it up for you and analyze that data kind of a little bit quicker and kind of get groupings together. But essentially what you want to do is you want to analyze your search term data to identify via impressions, via clicks, via conversions, what are your top performing search terms, and you want to group them into themes. So you're not necessarily looking for really specific long tail keywords to add in, but what are people searching for in relation to kind of your products? And you can do this at different levels. You can do it at an account level, you could do it at a campaign level, an ad group level, to understand, what are people searching for. And from this information, it's about identifying, okay, so if they're searching for these terms, I need to weave these terms into my product titles in order for me to appear relevant to when a user enters this search, but also to give Google the information that it needs to identify what searches I should be triggering for or not. This obviously works in terms of what you're already being found for. You can also apply a degree of kind of logic to it. So if you start thinking about, because essentially what a consumer is going to be looking for versus if you put yourself in the mindset of a consumer, then 9 times out of 10, unless you're in a really, really niche vertical, it's going to be quite similar. You're going to be able to think, well, if I was looking for this product, what would I be searching for? And you're looking for kind of key terms. The other thing that you can look for is key like functions, key pain points that users are looking to get addressed. So it might be, if we're thinking about like electronics, it could be that people are very frequently searching for electronics that are eco-friendly, that have a good rating in terms of power usage, things like that. It might be that if somebody's searching for, I don't know, hair care products, it might be that they're searching for anti-frizz or something like that. So in addition to kind of the product type searches, so in this example, the wardrobe, the drawers, that we can identify, we're also looking for things that come up frequently that identify kind of a feature or a function that a user is looking for within a product. So if I go back to kind of the shoes type searching for kind of Nike, it might be that somebody is looking for kind of lightweight. It might be they're looking for waterproof. Which searches and which kind of features come up most kind of frequently? Obviously, then when you're translating this back into kind of the products and the titles to optimize, if you are putting the features and functions in, it's important that the product delivers on that. So, if you are putting eco-friendly in, making sure that the product is eco-friendly. If you are adding waterproof to kind of a trainer search, then the trainer itself is waterproof. So identifying, which terms need to be incorporated, and then also identifying, well, which product am I going to assign this to? And this comes down to adjusting those titles for reach. So you can add keywords to expand the reach. to more of category related searches. And in this instance, think about that as, if we're thinking about search campaigns, that would be more thinking about it as a phrase match. So this is adding things like those features, those functions. It's adding the category terms into your title. So that's kind of expanding the reach based on category. But you can also look to almost de-optimize titles to reduce the reach of the products as well. So this is looking at, how do I make my product titles more specific? So thinking exact match to a product. And the reason you might want to de-optimize a product title is if, for example, you've got a really big feed and you've got some products that perform really well, you've got others that they do okay, but they're not kind of your best sellers. In these scenarios, actually, you might want to control which product Google is showing, or kind of signal to Google which products to show for these kind of category related searches, because you know that if you show this product versus this product, well, product A is going to perform better more 9 times out of 10 because it's your best selling product. Whereas, you know, you might still want to advertise for product B, but you only want to advertise if somebody is really, really looking for that product. So in these scenarios, this is about introducing attributes, things like the color, the size, the material. It's about de-optimizing. So you're not optimizing for kind of wider category or function or feature reach, just really, really specific terms that connect directly to the product itself. And in terms of what that might look like, got some examples of how different brands of kind of and products are being optimized for kind of that different reach. So if you look at the 2 examples here, they're both minus the copper versus silver tips. They are essentially they are the same product, but one has a very kind of long optimized title. It's picking up the category, it's picking up different kind of functions. So it's talking about the temperature control, it's talking about the LED display, that it's easy to use, that it's rapid boil. It's added and it's optimized for a lot of different kind of features and functions. Whereas the product title on the right, all it is very simply the product and kind of the color attribute that is contained within it. So in reality, these products would optimize for higher and kind of lower reach within them. And the same for this example as well, in terms of getting in the branding, getting in the sizing, the colors, the materials, all that kind of information. One of the things just to point out, and I'm going to touch on kind of AI and tools a little bit in a little while, is that when you are using kind of automation and you're using AI to kind of build out titles, then just be careful with what that actually ends up looking like. Because you can see in this example, quite frequently when you use a tool or AI to build out kind of your titles, essentially you pick and choose the different attributes that are already contained within your feed. So you'll say, I want to build out the title based on, I want to put the brand in, I want to put the product title in, and then that's already contained. And then I want to add the color, or I want to add the size, I want to add the gender. And when you do this, it can mean that you end up with something like this where it's repetitive. And because you've added the brand to the start of the product title that already had the brand in the product title, you end up with a repetitive title. So just something to watch out for when you do kind of optimize it and use kind of any automation and AI to do so. In terms of the kind of next elements, the next one in terms of would be looking at kind of the product differentiation. So how does your product differentiate from the other products within your feed? So you're thinking about things like this is where the attributes come in. So is it how would users find this product versus another product? So is it that this product is black and the other one is blue? Is it that is it the size a differentiator? Is the color? Is the material? Is the pattern a key differentiator? And with the differentiators, it's about identifying, well, what is important to when a user is searching, because not all differentiators are kind of deal breakers. And again, it comes down to the different verticals that you're in. But what would a user search for that is different to find this product? And again, it could come down to kind of the features and the functions of kind of the products, but it's thinking about how can I identify this product versus another product. So what happens when some of these attributes might be missing? So the identifier attributes, or maybe they're mismatched. And this is an example of essentially what can happen when you don't submit the attributes, or you do submit them, but maybe they're not quite right. So searching for a blue jumper, and you can see, and in scenarios like this, it sticks out like a sore thumb, which may be good, may be bad, but if a user's searching for a specific thing, it's probably going to be on the bad side. But essentially, searching for a blue jumper, and I think we can all agree that the one that stands out is the bright green jumper. So this is an example of where, attributes are not quite aligning with what a user is searching for. So, and that can cause you, wasted ad spend, wasted clicks. And, it could cost you the delivery of a product that would have been relevant to this search. So it's about understanding and optimizing the products and adding the attributes so that Google knows what to show and when to show it for which searches. And then we have got the title structure. So like I mentioned, the title structure is going to be different for each vertical. And there is some general examples here of kind of how that structure would flow for a couple of different verticals, but there's not necessarily a right or wrong way. And it's good to kind of test and kind of explore what works for your products, what works for kind of your brands. Essentially, if everybody ends up doing the same thing, everything looks the same within kind of the Google search interface. So actually, sometimes it can benefit to kind of stand out. One thing to keep in mind is with the title structure is Google reads from left to right, and it weights the importance from left to right as well in terms of prioritizing what to match your product to. So having the important information to the left of your product title is really, really important. The other thing to keep in mind is, if I flick back, you can see that it truncates. So technically, a optimized title is, you can have up to 150 characters. After 150 characters, it's 100% getting cut off. But you can actually see it's a lot fewer than that characters in terms of when it starts to truncate here. So think about that when you're optimizing your titles versus what a user is actually going to see, unless they kind of hover over it and it pulls up the full title. This is, you might have 6 words, 5 to 8 words is kind of the range in which kind of will show up, and then it's going to kind of cut it off. And it varies between kind of mobile and desktop. Desktop shows slightly more than mobile before it starts to truncate, but just keep that in mind in terms of getting that important information to the start of your title. So in terms of just like an example, so this is for a footwear. So thinking about what's important for footwear, brand typically is important, particularly if it's something like trainers, anything like that, then people are very frequently searching with brand. They're also very frequently searching with gender, so having that upfront is useful. And then you're going into kind of the product type, and that's kind of the base of the title. Then you're starting to think about, well, what additional things might a user be searching for when it comes to looking for a new trainer? So it might be a key feature, so like the lightweight, the waterproof. Are they adding color? Are they adding size? Are they adding material. And you can build your kind of titles out in that kind of structured, logical order that Google can kind of follow through. In terms of size and color, when a user is searching for, like we saw with this example here, a specific color, it's beneficial to have kind of the color there. You can play around with and test between what happens when you have the color in the title or the size in the title versus not having the size. And it really depends, in my opinion, on like what your stock quantities are like. Because if somebody searches for a specific size and you don't have the size within your ad, and they click, so your ad is delivering, maybe they're looking for a size 4, but your ad is showing a size 5. It doesn't say it in the ad, but if the user clicks through to the product page, they're going to land on a size 5. If on your kind of from your stock perspective, you don't have a size 4 in stock, then that creates a bad user experience. So whilst in some instances, if you don't have the product, if you have the product in stock and another size shows, it's not kind of too big of a detriment, but actually it can create a negative experience if you're showing your titles without size in them and the user's clicking through and you don't have their size available, then it creates kind of a negative experience. So in my experience, adding the size, adding the color attributes can be of benefit to the product in the long run. From electronics, as I spoke about kind of earlier, something really different kind of from the electronics perspective is having kind of that model numbering. That is important. We see that come through when people are searching on kind of electronic items. But again, having kind of key specs, having the features, the functions, you know, in this instance, anti-stain, A-rated, 8 kg, the fact that, you know, it's a built-in washing machine. So identifying, you know, what is important, what are the key differentiators that are important to show to the user, from not only getting kind of that increased visibility, because Google can pick these out, and when somebody's searching for an anti-stain washing machine, then suddenly your ad is relevant because you've got that in the title, versus if you didn't. Then also it helps to filter clicks, because if somebody's looking for an integrated built-in washing machine and your ad is showing as a freestanding washing machine, then that can pre-qualify whether you get kind of the click or not. Then we move on to AI and automation and how this can help to speed up the process of optimizing the feed. So one of the tools that I'm sure we've all come across at this point, is absolutely everywhere, is ChatGPT. So AI and automation can be really beneficial to enhance the process of optimizing both at an individual level, but also bulk product edits. So for ChatGPT, you can supply a prompt to improve the product titles, and you can give some examples, and it will give you an improved title back, and it will give you the rationale. And that obviously does it at an individual level. The rationale and kind of the insights that it provides back can give you, I guess, a guide in terms of rolling that out at scale, but it can be quite kind of a slow process. So there are other methods and other ways in terms of how you can use ChatGPT to essentially get this done in bulk. One of them is a tool plugin for Google Sheets, and it's called GPT for Sheets and Docs. You can get a free 90-day trial as it stands. After that, it does require a subscription. But for example, if you wanted to do one big bulk edit of your shopping feed in one go, then you could sign up, free 90-day trial, add it as the extension, run the script, and then after 90 days, your trial will just end. You don't have to put any card details or anything in to get the 90-day trial, but it's a good starting process to kind of start pulling information from your product pages. And the way that GPT for Sheets and Docs works is you set up your prompts, so you can have multiple columns with different prompts. So in this instance, I've got kind of 3, and it's essentially just asking three different things. So the first one is, what is the product brand on the landing page? And then the input is you just give the product page, and then the output is a list of basically what it finds on the page for each of these areas. I will say some areas it does kind of better than others. It also is reliant on the information being present somewhere on the product page. But it can start to fill in kind of some of the blanks within your feed. So if, for example, your feed is without color within it, but the color is present somewhere on the product page, it can help you to really quickly kind of populate the color. What I would just say is make sure that you do, spot check, quality check the output that this gives. Another way is, rather than giving kind of individual titles to optimize directly to ChatGPT, you can give a CSV document and ask it to basically populate the color attribute within there. So that's another way, again, to quickly populate. Again, it's only as good as the information that it has available to it. My colleague James has actually built a tool called Mammoth, which runs a similar but much more complex and detailed version of this kind of GPT for sheets and docs. And that populates like product descriptions, and it pulls information from lots of different places. I want to say the PMS, the information that's directly already available within the feed and the product pages, pulls it all together from a number of different sources, and then it produces kind of the outputs for you. And you can kind of, for things like the product descriptions, you can tailor the tone of the output so it matches kind of your brand. For things like the output, like the color, things like that, obviously the color is just the color, so you don't need to kind of tone it. But for things like titles, for things like descriptions, you can use kind of automation on scale for that as well. So that's kind of a summary. You can also use Claude. Claude does kind of a similar job. They both have free versions, so you can get so many outputs out of the free version from Claude and ChatGPT. I will say they perform best when you kind of take a subscription. Both of them are $20 or €20 a month, so about £15 a month. So they're quite cheap to get kind of the pro version, and it does just give a little bit better response in terms of what you get out of it. But you can do it on the free version, and it will give you kind of the outputs as well. Once you have identified kind of what you're going to optimize, it's then looking at kind of how to apply those optimizations. So the first place you can apply them is the website backend. With the website backend, this is going to be, a manual process to update. The benefit of doing it in the backend is if you are optimizing things like the titles or descriptions, that can have, a knock-on benefit to kind of your SEO and your organic rankings from that perspective. So there's benefit to do it in the backend. Depending on kind of how you work, it might be that, if you work with a client, then you need to kind of pass it on to the client. If you've got a developer, you might need to get kind of developer input. So there might be a couple of roadblocks in terms of being actually able to apply in the website backend. So you've got other options. So you can also apply in Merchant Center. In Merchant Center, there are multiple options in how you can do this. I favor 2 of them over the third one. So the first one is via attribute rules. And attribute rules allow you to make edits in bulk to specific elements of your feed. So, for example, if you've got all your product titles, but they don't contain the color, but you are submitting the color attribute as within your feed as an attribute, you can create a rule to append the color onto the end of your product title. So it can really quickly help you to kind of improve the titles that you've got in there. It could be that you add the size, it could be that you add material, and you can build out more structured product titles. You can create loads and loads of different kind of rules. So I've created rules previously for kind of the product type. So product type is, it's a recommended attribute, so it's optional. But over time, its significance and importance has kind of increased. So historically, product type would just be used to, for somebody like me who kind of manages shopping ads, to build out the structure. So it really kind of just an internal attribute that helped you to kind of structure campaigns. Google has since released some kind of information on product type and actually how it's used by Google. And it has indicated that actually it's not just used from kind of an internal perspective. Actually, Google uses this to help it categorize products and identify what vertical and what category a product sits in. And it does so best when you are submitting your product type with kind of 3 levels. So typically the way your product type would work is it would follow the breadcrumb structure of your website. So if we took, like, I don't know, the range, for example, the breadcrumb structure might be garden furniture, gazebos, garden furniture, rattan, garden furniture, something like that. So it'd follow kind of the structure, and that structure helps Google to break your product down into kind of different searches. And again, between that kind of more specific product search versus that kind of wider kind of category, if somebody's generally searching for garden furniture versus somebody that's specifically searching for a gazebo. So it helps Google in kind of categorization. So it has become kind of a ranking element in determining whether your ad is relevant or not to what a user is searching for. So building out your product types can be beneficial to kind of the visibility and the deliverability of your products. So from that perspective, again, you can use rules. If your product types aren't in kind of a great order, the rules that I've set up previously are based on kind of having a good navigation system on kind of the website. So if your domains clearly have kind of the paths where it's, you know, /garden, /garden furniture, /rattan, whatever it might be, if they have nice, clean URL path structures like that, then you can use the feed rules attribute rules to build out logic statements to say, if the path contains garden furniture, then set the product type to garden furniture. And obviously you can add kind of more detail and more rules connected to that as well. It's also something you can do at bulk within a Google Sheet. So all that would take is splitting your URLs by the path. So you can move text to columns by separating by kind of the /, and then you've got kind of your levels to your product type. So that's another way to do it in bulk as well, if your product types either are missing, if they're not there at all, or if they're maybe not in kind of the greatest structure. Another way to use Merchant Center is through that kind of Google Sheet. So you can upload a supplemental feed. So for example, if you've got information in different systems, but it's not all on the product page on the website. So for example, sometimes businesses have the GTIN, so the barcode numbers, housed within a different system to kind of the website backend, and they're not always submitted with the feed, but they are a required attribute. Then you can use a supplemental feed to join the two data sources together. So attribute rules and supplemental feeds are great ways to stay in control and have visibility of edits in bulk. In Merchant Center, you can also manually edit each individual product. I don't recommend doing this because any edit that you make overwrites anything that happens within the feed. And if you were then to update anything in your feed, in your rules, in your supplemental feeds, then it won't re-overwrite what you've edited manually within that one product. And in order to remove that edit, you have to manually go into each individual product and undo each edit. So there's no bulk undo, there's no bulk remove at the moment for manual product edits within Merchant Center. So my preference would be, if you're going to make edits, to do them within a supplemental feed or to do them within an attribute rule. Particularly if you are going to go down the route of manually editing with an individual product in Merchant Center, just make sure you never touch the stock status and you never touch the price, because these are things that obviously over time are going to change, and you don't want to have to go in and manually undo kind of all of these edits. So attribute rules and Google Sheets, good options for Merchant Center. And then the final one is through feed tools. So feed tools can work in a number of different ways. So you've got your traditional feed optimization tools. So we use some tools like Feed Optimize. There's also things like Data Feed Watch. And these have functions within them that help you to edit and update and optimize your feed in bulk. So again, they have what I was talking about earlier, where we have the New Balance trainers. They have functions where you can just drag and drop different attributes to build out titles. So really, really quick and simple, and you can do it at scale across either your whole feed or a specific category within your feed and kind of build that out. So that's really kind of an efficient way to do it. They're also implementing kind of AI features within a lot of the feed tools now, to kind of obviously enhance that process and build that out at scale. There's also the other side of kind of the feed tools from a CSS, which is a comparison shopping service. And essentially a lot of the CSSs, they run the CSS, and a CSS essentially, oh God, it must be over 5 years ago now, probably like 8 years ago now, Google essentially got fined. If you're not familiar with CSS, is Google got fined in the European courts for essentially monopolizing Google Shopping, where the only ads that would ever show in Google Shopping are Google Shopping. So to as part of that kind of process, they had to allow other shopping providers to deliver ads within Google Shopping. And this is where kind of the CSS was formed. One of the benefits of a CSS is a 20%, I'm going to say saving. Technically, it is a saving on your cost per clicks. But usually it works out as your bid becomes 20% more efficient. And the reason you get that 20% saving is when you run your ads through Google Shopping itself, so you don't use a CSS, then Google takes, before you set your bid, before that bid enters the auction, Google takes a 20% commission off the top of that bid. So if you bid £1, your bid actually goes into the auction at 80p. Whereas when you do it through a CSS, that 20% commission doesn't come off. So if you bid at £1, your ad goes into the auction at a £1 bid. So either, you can reduce your CPCs, but a lot of the time we're using kind of smart bidding strategies. So it ends up that your bid just becomes 20% more efficient or more competitive than if you were just using Google Shopping. With the CSS, everything runs exactly the same. The CSS just connects to your Merchant Center, and then everything runs the same. So you don't see any kind of difference. But some of the CSS tools, so we work with a CSS called Product Hero, and they also have feed optimization functionalities. So some of the tools, they focus purely on feed optimization. Others are CSS tools, but they also have this kind of feed optimization element to them as well. In terms of the impacts of kind of the optimization, so if we're looking at kind of expanding reach, so the original title, quite kind of short and specific. It does have the product type in, but it doesn't really have anything kind of else in addition to that. We're adding in, key search terms. So if somebody's searching for a 3-door, very often they'll be searching for a triple wardrobe, adding in the color, adding in kind of key functions. So it's clothes storage, hanging rails, 5 shelves. So adding in specifications and attributes and functions of the product. And when we do this, we can start to see how that impacts directly onto the impressions for that product within Google Shopping ads. So we can see it kind of builds and builds through there. So there is a lot of kind of potential in terms of optimizing these products and how you can, gradually and, in some instances, instantly increase kind of your visibility over time. And again, kind of the same principle of taking kind of a quite kind of simple basic title, adding in kind of that additional detail, the attributes, the functions, the features, and then what that looks like in terms of impacts on the ad delivery as well. You can see kind of where it steps up. And from that, obviously, we're focusing on how do we increase the products for kind of increased visibility. But actually, the thing that comes alongside that is, well, actually, do we get more clicks? Do we get more conversions off the back of that as well? And actually, you can see kind of the step up goes in line with each other. So if you optimize right, you can get increased visibility, which can lead to increased sales. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're optimizing the right products in the right way. So if you've got a poor performing product with low product reviews that doesn't really perform like very well for you, getting it more visibility isn't going to solve that problem necessarily. And it might just mean that you're showing a product for kind of that expanded reach, when actually, if you focused in on a different product, it would work better. So I will say, you know, not every product is going to work in Google Shopping. You're going to have some that perform better than others. That's always going to be the case. So it's about picking which products have potential and kind of honing in on those to optimize those first. And it might be that actually you might want to de-optimize some of your kind of lower performing ones to reduce what searches they are triggering for. In terms of kind of analyzing and assessing, you know, what's missing in your product data, it can be quite kind of hard to do if you've got like an XML link or you're using a product API. In kind of Merchant Center, it can be a little bit more difficult. So if you are using an XML feed still, we have a free XML converter tool that you can use, that you can grab from here, and essentially it just converts it into a CSV file so you can view it within Excel, and then you can easily see, well, which products haven't got a color attribute, which products haven't got kind of material, product type, whatever it might be. So it just makes it a little bit easier to kind of assess what the status of your feed is. And it also, if you convert it into a CSV file, it also means you can upload it into the likes of ChatGPT and ask it to, you know, analyze and identify which attributes are missing within it as well. So all in all, you want to set out with a purpose and map what optimizations you want to make, what are users searching for, what is going to make a difference in terms of adding them into your kind of product feed. Using AI and automation is going to speed up the process, but I would always cross-check the outputs. And really to kind of really kind of increase kind of your performance, I would recommend working alongside SEO to improve kind of your website performance in addition to kind of your feed as well. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And yeah, hi, Darren. Is there
hello? There's been a few. So we were discussing CSS in a bit more detail. So I think I've managed to field that to be totally transparent with a little bit of help from ChatGPT, but who doesn't need that these days? I did post in just an answer or some extra information on optimizing feeds through ChatGPT. Because I think prompting is essential. It tends to run off and do its own thing if you don't give it loads and loads of information about exactly what you want, but you can get some really nice things out of it if you can prompt it correctly. That was really informative. Thank you, Holly. I know you're not feeling 100%, so to talk for an hour is amazing. And you've timed it perfectly, 10 o'clock, so we're bang on. Since there's no more questions, I think we will leave it there. I'm going to post in the chat, because I don't know how to do the fancy pop-up thing, a link to our reviews. So if you have 2 minutes, if you could leave us a review, it goes a really long way just to support us with the webinars, because everyone puts a lot of time into doing these. So I've popped that into the chat. Next week, we have a webinar on generative search. Oh, it's popped up like magic. I think Anne's hovering somewhere doing that for me. Or maybe I somehow did it and didn't realize I knew how. Next week, we've got a webinar on generative search optimization. So there's a couple of people. Oh, and it's popped up again. There's a couple of people going to be on that webinar. It's a hot topic at the moment because with the way Google is changing, and we're now getting those search results coming through, and we've got ChatGPT and other tools that are taking market share, and search trends are changing. I think it'll be a really good one to listen to. So no matter whether you're B2B or B2C, or you're selling products, you're a service based, I think that's going to be a really interesting one just to get ahead of the curve and start to understand how that works and how to optimize for that. So that's next week. I think that is it. That just leaves me to say have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully we'll see you all next week.
Thank you everybody for joining.
Thanks, Holly. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.